Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
And welcome into Purple Access, of course, part of the Purple Daily family. Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune sports columnist, and my good buddy, joins me as always for this show. Let's start off here, Chipper. Let's start off with the J.J. McCarthy press conference, which, by the way, is the first time he's talked to the local media since he talked to him shortly after his surgery. His surgery, first one last year. He'd done plenty of like national stuff, Super Bowl stuff. And let's give credit where credit is due. Kevin Seifert, our old colleague, and now ESPN, just throwing fastballs at the presser. Fantastic. But I loved his question, basically upfront as could be, which is, do you feel that you're prepared to start here? And McCarthy had, I thought, an answer that was very, yes, I am. But I liked it because it didn't ring to me of arrogance or like this, how could you ask me that? He was just very prepared. Overall, and it's a press conference, we haven't seen him play down in a regular season game. But overall, I came away sort of just, again, impressed by what this kid brings to the table as far as his ability to handle things like the media.
Yeah, and that's been pretty... And we haven't had a lot of access to him, but every time we have, that's kind of been the central theme, right? Like, you can just tell his maturity, and you can tell that he has that it factor, that quarterback quality that has to be comfortable in the spotlight, and as kind of a spokesman, so to speak. And doesn't mean anything in terms of how he's going to play on the field, but I always tell people, like, you can tell he played quarterback at Michigan, because there is a big spotlight on that guy, and I like his demeanor, Judd. Like you said that answer. He said, "Do you think you're ready?" He said, "No, I know I'm ready," but it didn't come across as anything other than a guy who's comfortable in the position he's in. So, I mean, it was good to finally hear him talk again about rehab and all those things. I mean, someone told me 200 something days since he did a group press conference. So I went to I couldn't stick around for the press conference, but I went for just 15 minutes of watching the workouts, and you could tell he's added the weight back. I mean, that was the thing. I mean, it became kind of a talker that how skinny he looked during the season after his surgery, which is natural because those guys lose weight, but he looked all of 215 pounds, which is I think what he said he was.
What you're feeling about this too? This team has, so to go back to the O'Connell quote, I think it was last year at some point, it might have been in the fall, where he had the money quote of teams fail young quarterbacks more than young quarterbacks fail teams. And that's a really good quote, and it's really intriguing. But I also think that then you say, okay, let's see what you mean by that. Like what's the process? Yeah. And I mean, this offense now is definitely built up where J.J. McCarthy has to be good, definitely. But he does not have to be otherworldly, carry the team on your back. I feel like it's interesting because, Chip, it builds some pressure because the offensive line is better. But I also feel like it's sort of a cocoon that's been built where O'Connell can say, okay, here's what I need you to do, but I don't need you to do more than that because the supporting cast is so good.
Yeah, I look at it two ways. That is 100% correct. I mean, everything they've done this offseason has reeked of let's build the infrastructure around him, and not just offensive line, but the running game. All of that, so it's they're putting him in the best possible situation to succeed. But even saying that, Judd, like, no matter how much you try to take off a quarterback's plate, there's going to be a 3rd and 8 throw when you're down in a game that you have to be able to complete, right?
Yep.
You can't
100%.
Just 100% remove all the pressure from a quarterback or all the critical throws that he's going to have to make. And so that's what it comes down to, really, is like, how does he operate in those moments? Because they're going to be able to run the ball more effectively. They'll do it in short yardage. I think in the red zone, you're going to see more of that. But it's still going to be he's going to have to be able to show that he can do a 2-minute drive to win a game, do a 4-minute drive to ice the game, make a big time third down throw to keep a drive extended. So that's where I'm excited to see kind of O'Connell's handling of him. And I think early on, it'll probably be different than what it'll be in week 14 as he gets more comfortable, right? I think we're going to see really probably lean on the running game heavily early on.
Sure.
But as he gets acclimated to it. But I, from what we saw in training camp at the end, right before he got hurt in that preseason game, and, it wasn't a large sample size, but he plays with the moxie, I think, in terms of like trusting his arm, not being tentative on throws. I mean, he would stick it in the plate. We saw training camp where we're like, wow, that was a pretty gutsy throw he tried there. So I don't think he lacks for confidence or in himself or his skills.
I think the important thing too is he is definitely going to face adverse conditions at times. Like there's no way around that. But I think it's like the amount of 3rd and 8s, right?
Yeah.
So because if you can make it 3rd and 4 more than 3rd and 8, so now it's a manageable down, and then he has to come through when it is 3rd and 8. But if you are consistently putting him in that circumstance, you're inviting failure. So I think that's where this gets to be. J.J. McCarthy's going to, I agree completely with you. He's going to have to do some things that carry or help the team, but it doesn't put all the weight, or it shouldn't, on him. And I think that's where they're trying to reach a medium here of, hey, kid, we're going to need you at times, but we can't constantly, get 1st and 10. We get -2 yards. Then we get 4 yards. And now can you complete that pass? That's where I think it's a balancing act of sorts.
For sure. I mean, they realize they need to be more physical in the run game, and that's going to, alleviate a lot of the pressure on him in those critical situations when you're in the red zone. And, as we've talked about before, like, the last regular season game at Detroit when, you can't throw the ball, or if JJ's having a tough outing, that you can, now you have a running game that you can lean on to kind of help him get, centered again. The one thing I'm kind of curious about, I want to see is, when Michigan played the Gophers here 2 years ago, or whatever it was, 3 years ago, his senior year, and Vikings had just a huge contingent of Kwesi in front office and coaches as scouts there. But how athletic and mobile he was, that kind of, I guess I didn't really know as much or take, give him full credit for, but that was the one impression I walked away from that night. I was like, man, he is slippery back there. He's athletic. He's fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to see, not to say there's going to be a bunch of design run calls for him, but just how he moves in the pocket and keeps plays alive and do those type of things. I think that's something that when you look at all the quarterbacks, the top ones in the league have right now, right? I mean, you got to be able to do that. And so he was, that's the thing that really jumped out to me, is just how nimble he was and athletic he was. So I'm curious to see how O'Connell kind of, the freedom he gives with that, or they're kind of design things they can do to maximize that.
Yeah. I wonder, coming off the knee, how much they will do that, how much they won't. And I think the most important question too is not just can you scramble and like take off and run. I think the most important question is how much can you move the pocket while still being a quarterback, right?
To buy time. Yeah, to buy time.
Yeah, because that's a tough, like some guys got that, some guys don't. But if you do, it can alleviate pressure really, really well. And it is definitely a skill that is, it might be hard to come by, but if you've got that skill, you are valuable.
Yeah, and it's, his knee injury, will that affect it? I just sort of think that's probably instinctive to how he plays. So, I don't know if that'll be on his mind much, but I think that'll be something that'll that definitely is a kind of a box, checking his side that he can do. So it's it felt like, even though they're not going to come out and say he's QB1,
it's the most overblown.
It is. I don't understand. Like, it's like there's supposed to be a ceremony, like passing.
Yeah, like he's knighted, like he comes out in a chariot.
I know.
J.J.
Right.
McCarthy.
Here's your thing. Is it the staff that it's like?
Yeah.
Of course he's QB1. This is why they drafted him 10th overall. He's their quarterback. So, but I felt like just seeing him back on the field and doing that press conference, it's like, okay, now it's starting to kind of come to fruition.
Thoughts on Sam Howell as QB2?
Yeah. If they can, if he's going to quarterback school, right? He's going to the Kevin O'Connell quarterback rehabilitation.
And he's not the starter.
Yeah, he's not the starter. If O'Connell can get him to cut down on the turnovers, I think he's a good backup. Right. But it's just because he has experience, he's played in different systems. He's played a lot. It's just the turnovers. It's hard to get, around those. So, but sacks. That's where it's sacks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's the, that's the one thing. And we'll see what, how O'Connell helps him there. But I wasn't expecting I just assumed, Judd, they would sign somebody after the draft, to be honest with you, or try to pick up something. But, I assumed that was their plan all along, to make the draft day trade and had him targeted. So the thing is, O'Connell studies all these quarterbacks, Judd. And so I'm not saying he had a wide menu of guys to choose from, but he probably saw something in him throughout the either draft process or studying, evaluating, that felt like, okay, I can help this guy.
Right. And he's not going to start. So it's not with Darnold, they were preparing him to start. The other thing, though, that I find intriguing that's been ignored a little bit is this. O'Connell, a year ago now at that church he spoke at, talked about being the QB killer within the building. Yeah. And how interesting is it that there was not one free agent quarterback to what you're talking about that he wanted? Yeah. So supposedly the Flacco people were calling, and he's like, I'm good on that. That whole group that we were like sifting through, and we're like, okay, Tannehill might be the guy, or no, they're going to wait till after the compensatory pick time passes. Yeah. The reality, I think, Chipper, is I don't think that Kevin O'Connell, and this goes back to him being the QB killer, had an interest in any of those free agents.
No, and how much do you think age played a role in that too?
Definitely.
And the fact that, Flacco and Tannehill, they are what they are. Where he may look at a younger guy and see, some untapped potential, a ceiling that hasn't, some things that he can mold. So I do wonder if it's that, like, what's he going to show Flacco? Like, you can put him in your system, but it's not like you're teaching and helping a guy grow. Whereas, you get somebody younger, even, Darnold, who's not an old quarterback, but he, he's certainly not a 40-year-old guy that's coming to your however old these guys are. So I guess it doesn't surprise me the more I think about it.
Right.
I just was thinking more along the lines of, you have a serious injury and you need somebody to plug and play, and who do you feel comfortable with? That type of thing.
Yeah, I think there's two things as well off of your point too. One is, I think that it proves that they probably wanted to spend less on the backup than we assumed, because I think we assumed, well, you paid Sam $10 million, you'll pay somebody $10 million. If I am correct on this, Howell's going into the fourth and final season because he's not a first round pick of his rookie contract, so he's cheap. Yeah. The other thing, and we've talked about this a little bit. The other thing that I think is interesting, and it's very calculated, is this. I think they want a quarterback room where it's very harmonious, right? Guys help. But I also think that from a coaching staff wise, O'Connell, McCown, Phillips, probably, they have enough chefs in the quarterback kitchen where they're not like, we got to get a guy to help McCarthy. They've got that help. So it's not necessary to have, the voice of experience, Joe Flacco. quite frankly, I think O'Connell is much more comfortable with his own people being that voice as opposed to teams that bring in a veteran to sort of prop up the young quarterback.
Especially Josh McCown. I mean,
yeah,
you know, you always think, wow, it'd be nice to have a veteran sitting on, and I think I said this on this podcast a couple weeks ago, like, yeah, it would be nice to have a veteran who's sitting right next to J.J. in between series, after every series, kind of looking at the tablets and seeing what we're on. Josh McCown does that. I mean, every time we saw last year a view of Sam Darnold, who was sitting right next to him on the bench, Josh McCown, he's in his ear. So there's enough layers of mentors and coaching that I don't think another quarterback who's, 38 years old is really going to be the difference maker in that. So I agree with you on that. I think between O'Connell, McCown, they just have the setup that they want in terms of the communication, the filtering down of information, all that. I just think, McCown is such a valuable resource for those guys. I mean, we heard it so much. We heard Darnold talk about it and others, like the input that he gives them and just the day-to-day. And we would see him too, like, our access on Wednesdays or Thursdays, we'd have interviews. We'd go out there and those quarterbacks are on the field probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes after everybody had left, just going through the hand and handoffs and rollouts and all the different things. It's amazing, like just the detailed inside football work that they do after practice, all of them together with McCown.
Yeah, I don't think that all joking aside, when talking about the QB rehab school and things like that, there's a truth to that. Like these guys, this is a master's level college class in quarterback play. And if you don't want that, you probably don't belong here. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is. I don't think that I've ever seen like the quarterback stay that. Normally the third team guy will stay and throw two receivers just so he gets his reps in. But this was not even throwing as much as it was
footwork,
the simulating the handoffs, the footwork.
They do a lot of footwork.
They would do it against air. They would just drop back and it's like all three of them or four of them, how many there were last year. And it's just like over and over and over, just a repetition. I mean, it's like
all of them too.
Yeah. Like
Sam was out there forever. Yeah, you're right.
For sure. And it's just like, man, this is meticulous. This is like, but I do think you hear like, you remember what was that stretch? Was it Jacksonville where somebody asked, Darnold had the turnovers and somebody asked O'Connell back, said, well, the first thing it is, you go back to the footwork and where your eyes were and all those things. I don't think that's just coaching cliches. I mean, I think it literally is that minutia, like, how were your feet? Where were your eyes? What were you looking? Your hand placement. I think they like dissect that stuff to the nth degree, So I think that's how precise they are about that position.
So free agency is done. The draft is done. Basically, the roster is, I'm sure that there'll be some ads here and there, but basically the roster is set. Where are you most confident in the 2025 Vikings? And if there is a concern still for you, what is it?
Yeah, I would say the two lines. Obviously, wide receiver. We'll start there with Jefferson and Addison and those guys. I would say the two lines. I still think they need probably another veteran cornerback. Depth, yeah.
Can Okudah still play? Like Kwesi was talking about him, he's like if he can play, it's a big difference to me. But I have no idea where he's at, like from a physical standpoint. There's just question marks there to personally.
Yeah, I just think, well, that's it. I think there's more questions at corner. Now, they all could, Mekhi Blackman, it's not like it was a catastrophic injury, but it was a serious injury. It cost him a season. Yeah. So how does he bounce back from that? Is there any kind of rust? Is there that? So I just think there's more questions there, but I don't think you can have too much depth at cornerback. But, they got a lot better along their lines. You're never satisfied with the roster, but I feel like the roster is definitely been upgraded in a significant way.
The offensive line, Really, the defensive line, okay, that concerns me just a little bit because of the depth and
age.
And they rotate, and the age of two guys who are coming off injuries. I love what they did. I think I question that more. And I guess the offensive line, the one question mark is because he's not a kid, Ryan Kelly. He's been hurt as well. But yeah, just on the surface, like on the depth charts right now, I'm with you. It looks a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, running back, they got better. I felt like that was an area they had to address with the trade. They did that and bringing Aaron Jones back. And so on paper, the defensive line, makes a lot of sense. Now those older players have to show that, they're healthy and can be productive, but I don't, as we sit here today, I would say that those were really good moves, so it really does. So much of it is just going to be the quarterback. Like what level can he get to in his first year? And as we've seen, look what happened last year with these first year quarterbacks. The narrative doesn't have to be that they're going to struggle. I mean, they can step right in and go to the playoffs and have success in the playoffs and play well. So, I think I was watching one of the TV shows when I was getting my run in the other day, and they're talking about which quarterback is stepping into the best situation. I think a lot of them are saying, J.J. McCarthy, because of all the things that are around him. And I tend to agree with it.
Yeah, I think the thing, too, is that if you look at guys that step in, and some are just incredibly talented, but if you look at them, two questions, infrastructure wise, what's the coaching like and what's the talent like, the supporting cast around you? Because, Caleb Williams had some problems, but his offensive line was terrible, and it's been completely redone. And it made the Vikings line, I think, look really good. And the Vikings redid 3/5 of their line. And so, I think coaching is huge. Play calling. What Caleb had 2 OCs and started the year with a defensive coach as his head coach. And I think that this team has taken, I think this team gave Sam Darnold a lot to work with and looked at it and said it still was not enough. And so they've upped that. And so, I would agree that JJ is stepping into a situation, health provided, of course, where it looks to be the best. And I would have to think that the majority of quarterbacks in this league would take this job in a heartbeat because of Jefferson, but also because of like the line now, the run game, threats that weren't necessarily there going into 2024.
Yeah, you wouldn't look at this offense and say, okay, that area is a weakness right now. Now, last year, you'd point to the interior and say, I don't know. I mean, it's not where it should be or can be.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if your starting point is a good offensive line, a really good offensive line, Justin Jefferson, a running game, Jordan Addison, a tight end. I think a lot of guys would probably sign up for that,
Absolutely. So we did a show after the first round of the draft on Friday. Did any of the rest of the draft, in which they didn't have a ton of picks, catch your eye? The Ohio State receiver?
Yeah, well, you talking about who the Vikings took or just?
No.
Yeah, I was not expecting a wide receiver with their second pick, but then again, Kevin O'Connell has a lot of sway, I guess, with that.
Oh, yeah.
But a couple things. I said they need to get another defensive tackle. They did that. We knew they had to need to get a tight end to add to that room. They did that because they lost guys. They got another linebacker. The thing I like, and this is not the end all be all, but I think, am I right, Judd, that 4 of their 5 picks played in either the SEC or Big Ten? Right.
Big Ten, SEC, Big Ten, and then Pitt. Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
So they're facing the best. I mean, those are the 2 premier leagues, right? I mean, the 2 best leagues.
Yeah.
The 2 best athletes.
The 2 pro leagues.
The 2 pro leagues.
They're the 2 pro leagues.
That's right. again, that's not the end all be all, but I like the fact that they've gone up against the best competition in college football. So I don't know if that's a thing that swings anybody's opinion or not, but you get a Penn State linebacker who played on a really good defense, surrounded by great talent. I like that. Get a Georgia defensive tackle who's surrounded by great, had great coaching, a high, level of defense. So I like that. It's just hard when you only have 5 picks and really,
right.
That's why I kind of laugh at these, the draft grades. It's like, one, how the heck do we know a day after the draft what a draft class is going to be like? We have no idea. But two, it's like when you have only 5 picks, it's hard to say, this was an A or this was a D or whatever.
That's what we found. But part of those grades is based on amount of picks, which is why teams love to have 20 picks, because the Vikings actually got dinged. I didn't see many places ding the Vikings for the players that they took, but they dinged them huge for the lack of players. And that to me is odd. Now I know if
it's their own doing, though. Yeah, it's their own doing.
Yeah. Well, but if Dallas Turner turns out, then that's a good trade.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So we're not going to, if Turner develops into the player that the Vikings think, we're not going to, in a year or so, sit here and complain about how could you not have, that pick and that.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets to be, I think, a little of a nuanced discussion. And I will say, if you continually give up, F them picks like the Rams, you run into problems. So I'm not advocating for this, but I'm also not convinced that you have to trade back and accumulate picks every single year to come away feeling like you were successful, because there's a lot of names on a board.
Yeah. I mean, this is the path they chose, but at some point they're going to need a lot of picks to replace and hit on them to replenish. Cause you just can't continue to be an old team. Right. And you shorten your window, and then when guys either pan out or move on because they're either too old or too expensive, you're not developing behind them with these draft picks. So I think that's where it's, that's where it could get dicey for them. But if you look at this roster right now, it's clearly built to win right now. The window with the veteran core that they have is the present, not looking down the road. Yeah,
and I will say the interesting thing about this draft in particular was the amount of UDFAs after the draft, because it was like the COVID classes, and there was talk that there were a lot of even 6th and certainly 7th round ordinary picks that didn't get taken, which leads me to this. Your thoughts, since you saw him a ton with the Gophers, obviously, Max Brosmer being brought in as I would guess, potential practice squad guy, but extrapolate his pro career for me. Or look at a crystal ball.
Yeah. I will say one of the smartest quarterbacks that I've covered that play for the Gophers, his ability to, he's not the biggest guy, probably doesn't have the best arm. He's very accurate, but he processes so fast. Like his ability to read a defense, read what's the situation, and be able to just make the right decision where to go and then put the ball in the money. He was, in 1 year, he made such an impact on them, on that program. Unbelievable leader, unbelievable, just mature kid. Everybody loved him. He became, he stepped in there as a grad transfer and became undeniable leader of that team. And that's hard to do in just a few weeks or months. And so, but everybody you talked about just how smart he is. And he basically lived at the practice field. He wasn't really taking a high level classes, he basically came there to play football.
No, he didn't concentrate on school.
I think he had his degree and he was doing something, post degree, but he put in a lot of, they're I remember they were playing Penn State and their offense coordinator, Greg Harbaugh, talked about, they gave him like 70 checks that line, which is that week, which was just, unusually high number. I can't remember what the exact number was, but he could just absorb all that. So I imagine he'll be a practice squad guy. And, is he ever going to be an NFL star? I have no idea on that. But he's certainly the kind of quarterback you'd want to have in your room, because he's He's just the real deal. I mean, I became a big fan of his.
And O'Connell loves guys like that. O'Connell loves film junkies and stuff. He loves that
that's
stuff.
What he is. I mean, that's what he'd watch film all day, and he just a really class act kid, or young man. I shouldn't say kid, but young man. So
you could say kid, Chip. You're old enough.
Yeah, we're old enough.
I say kid. He's a kid to us.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, sir. I will talk to you next week for more Purple Access. Thank you, Chip Scoggins, and have a good one.
All right, brother.
All right. See you later.